Hello, franchise friends. I'm Simon and I'm your guest host today for Franchising Brand Stories.
And I'm Lisa Stead. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Stagecoach Performing Arts.
Fantastic. Lisa, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I am standing in for Harvey today. He's carrying out some essential parental duties and why not indeed? Because that's what we love in franchising, isn't it? That work-life balance and prioritizing the things that are really, really important. But he's left me in complete control of his command center here. So if I hit the wrong button, I do apologize.
It's very impressive from this end. It looks
okay. Thank goodness you can't see my holiday snaps then. But listen, it's great that you're here. And I said what we want to do really is just share the truly inspiring story of Stagecoach. And we're also going to look at some of the exciting things that are happening as well in the future. But yeah, franchising brand stories. You know, this is our chance to put the brochure to one side, to put the spreadsheet to one side with all the numbers on, and really focus on the journey and the story, the vision, the values of the franchise. Because for our audience of prospective franchisees, if you can align with that story and the journey and the vision, the values, you stand a much greater chance of being successful, I believe, in franchising. So that's what we're all about. We're all about storytelling. So I hope you're okay with that.
I love a good story.
Excellent.
Shutting up is going to be the problem.
Okay. Well, look, let's dive straight in for a start of a 10. And this may be a stupid question, but I mean, take it as you see it. But what is Stagecoach? What do you do at Stagecoach?
So Stagecoach is not the bus company, despite anybody calling in and saying, my bus hasn't arrived, where is it, to our customer service in head office. It is Stagecoach Performing Arts. It provides an hour of singing, an hour of dancing, an hour of drama outside of mainstream school. So it's an extracurricular activity for children 4 through to 18. And the primary focus of what we do is creative courage for life. So whilst it does give them skills in how to act, how to sing, how to dance, the real focus is the life skills that can give a child in confidence and in self-assurance and self-awareness and building friendships. And yeah, so the benefit that has outside of just being on a stage.
Yeah, no, I feel a bit stupid asking that question because as a parent, I mean, Stagecoach has always been one of those staple brands, hasn't it? You know,
yeah,
kids get really age and everybody's talking about Stagecoach and performing arts and theatre and drama. And I think the fact that you allow children to really express themselves is absolutely superb.
Yeah, I think it's a massive part of where I am now. I was a Stagecoach student when I was 11. So my Stagecoach story started right back when I was 11 years old, and I did it for 5-6 years.
Brilliant. And was it with that passion and enthusiasm for the arts that took you back into Stagecoach later on in your life?
Definitely.
Brilliant. Well, what a bonus to be able to live and work doing something you really enjoy doing.
Oh, I mean, I'm in my happy place, 100%.
Good. Oh, that's fantastic to hear that. Okay. Well, look, this chapter 1 is all about setting the scene, really, for telling people a bit more about the whole Stagecoach setup and everything else. So, so where are you at? Where are you at today in terms of UK franchise? I know you're a global brand. I mean, Stagecoach is a global brand.
Yeah.
I mean, our audience primarily here are people that are looking to maybe start their own business in the UK. So, where are you at today in terms of the UK?
So in terms of the UK, we've got about 276 territories that are open and running. We have about 10 to 15% of the UK that is still available, but that we appreciate that's actually quite a small amount of the UK given how franchising works. And there are certain areas sort of slap bang in the middle of the Pennines or whatever that's not maybe as good for selling performing arts to children because there's just a lot of sheep and hills. So we are limited, I think, on some of the territories that we've got available, but we've still got some great areas available to sell it into. We have 350 territories globally. So the global expansion is something that is very much high on our priority list, but ensuring that in doing that, we don't forget that the UK is where we started.
Yes.
Over 35 years ago now, I think 37 maybe. We were bought out by another company called Encore a good few years ago. And then back in 2018, were bought out by a company called Trafalgar Entertainment, who are a theatre-based company and are run by theatre royalty, basically. Yeah. So Sir Howard and Dame Rosemary are genuinely seen as theatre royalty. So for them, this was adding something into their portfolio that, yes, was a very good commercial decision, but also was about giving back and ensuring that performing arts really can be accessed by all ages.
Yes.
And across as much of the world as possible. So
I love that. They could align, impresarios in theatre, but they could align with what Stagecoach were doing, and it was very much the value, the shared values and vision that brought everybody together under that sort of umbrella. So Trafalgar is the parent company then. It's
the parent company, yes, and that's the private equity investors have invested into Trafalgar Entertainment. They own theatres across the UK. They own ticketing services. They have a production company. They own cinemas. So all linked in with that great performing arts background. But that gives an amazing legacy for the children and the students and the parents and the teachers and the principals and franchisees to dial into as well. There are venues right on their doorstep that are within our company that they have access to. And it gives them opportunities that perhaps they wouldn't have had when it was just founder, owner, operated.
Yes, that's fantastic, and obviously you've got plenty of venues where you can perform at as well.
We do.
That's really interesting. I think what I'd like to explore is maybe just some of the, where did it all begin to, it began for Trafalgar with the acquisition of Stagecoach, and they could see a lot of, as we've already said, aligned values and opportunities. How did that all come about? What was the backstory behind that?
So I think prior to Trafalgar owning the company, it was owned by a company called Encore. They were the people who bought from the founder operator who established way back in the 80s. And it was a family-run business for a really, really long time. And they were just ready to move on to the next stage and exit. They'd realised the full potential for themselves and realised that the next stage was for them to take a step back. We actually still have the daughter of our founder working the head office in Stagecoach. She has been with us the whole time. So there's a really lovely legacy there that's come through, that's sort of stayed constant no matter who owns the company. And it is a difficult transition when you go from being founder operated, keep that same culture, to keep that same, it sounds cheesy, family feel. Yeah. But that is something that Stagecoach have done incredibly well. Yeah. They have kept that initial culture of collaboration, of working with our franchisees, of supporting them, but empowering them to grow and develop almost entrepreneurially on their own, but within the boundaries of being a franchise still. So it is very much a two-way collaboration. And Trafalgar came along in 2018 and obviously came along with a lot of investment money and a lot more structure and perhaps some of the corporate things that can sometimes scare people. And it was spending some time when they first came in learning what worked with their culture and what worked with our culture. But there were so many values that were aligned that actually it was quite a simple transition, and it didn't cause too much of an upheaval for anybody because the values were so similar.
Yeah.
They are focused on collaboration. They are focused on respect. And they're two things that are key and important for us with our franchisees, as well as Trafalgar to all of their group-owned companies. Yeah. So aligning those values was just so important, as it is, as most people know, when you're a franchisor taking on franchisees who align with the same values, it just builds for such a good working relationship moving forward.
It does. And also, from a franchisee's point of view, knowing that they have that infrastructure, that organization, and probably more importantly, the investment as well, to be able to develop and grow the business and to meet the demands and requirements. Because as I said, franchisees are tapping into that. That's what they're going to benefit from on a day-to-day basis as well. And, and it's great that there is that alignment there. But I guess that leads on to the next question, really, that they've remained true to franchising as well.
Yeah.
Franchising was, back in the day when it originally started and still is today, very much the route to market and the route for expanding the business, would you say?
Absolutely. And it still will be. We're very much focusing, when we're doing our global expansion, in working with master franchisees in various countries. We do have units in other countries that we established before we had masters, but definitely the growth going forwards will be to work with a sole person in a country or in an area and help them in the same way as we would with a franchisee to get customers. We're going to help them get customers who are going to become franchisees as well. So that is very much focusing on franchising to grow and build Stagecoach Performing Arts. We won't come away from that. It's been so successful. We've got such a strong and positive culture within the network. That's definitely been seen by Trafalgar, and they wouldn't change that.
I think that's really important as well, isn't it? A business that's built on franchising, you know, that is going to be the legacy as well, isn't it, in terms of going forward? I mean, how is that reflected then? I mean, from a franchisee's point of view, if they come into Stagecoach as a franchisee, what can they expect? I mean, being part of the Trafalgar Group, I guess it's very much focused on support and making sure that franchisees have that support available in the field and the head office to enable them to really focus on and grow their businesses.
Yeah, we have a phenomenal training program, and actually it's something that we evolve all the time. So we don't go, hey, this was great 10 years ago and we're going to keep on with it. We're actually doing a massive overhaul and review now, just to make sure that we're always, one of the values of Trafalgar is excellence. And we've very much taken that on board. It's like, it's not just okay to be good. I don't know if people have read the book Good to Great, but we definitely want to be not just sat at good. We want to be great. We want to be excellent. And we always want to be at the very top of our field, which we are within Stagecoach Performing Arts. And we want to retain that. We meant to make sure that we are sector leaders in what we're doing in children's education. And so remaining ahead of the curve on those things is really important for us. So we're currently reviewing our teacher training program to ensure that we give the very, very best support to the teachers, who are the ones delivering, to our principals, who are the franchisees, who run the day-to-day business operations and manage those teachers, but also providing experiences to our students that perhaps even in franchising they wouldn't have had access to. So for example, because of the size that we are and because we have the relationship with Trafalgar Entertainment, we have access to industry professionals that we can run masterclasses, and Stagecoach head office will run the masterclasses that the franchisees can then send their students to, with people that perhaps they wouldn't be able to afford to access, and those people wouldn't go to their areas. But we can run masterclasses all across the country that get them to tap into industry experts that they wouldn't have had access to before, and performances in theatres that they wouldn't have had access to. So we have frequent performances in the West End. We take our children to Disney in Paris, and that's a regular thing that happens a couple of times a year. We're looking to add more dates to do that because it's insanely popular, and they get to perform on stage with pros, which is something that a lot of people would not have access to if they were doing it on their own without the franchise support network, or even if the franchise support network wasn't big enough to be able to warrant doing it.
Yeah, it's true. It's like people say, look, why should I choose a franchise when I can do it myself? And in the last couple of minutes, you've just given us every single reason why. It just gives you gives you such a head start, doesn't it? You can really capitalize on all those years of not just, you know, experience and reputation, but investment as well. And that's a fantastic opportunity for anybody looking to start a business, particularly maybe in later life when you think, you know, maybe I've left it too late to be a real entrepreneur and start something up myself. It's never too late, is it?
It's never too late. No, it's never too late. And I think for this, with us, if you have got, it actually genuinely doesn't matter what your experience is. If you have the passion for children and you want to make a difference in people's lives, you don't need to have been a teacher. You don't need to have been an entrepreneur. You don't need to have run your own business. You need to have the passion for empowering and changing children's lives.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't like children, our franchise probably isn't for you. Got to be honest. But as long as you like kids and you want to empower and encourage and leave a legacy, then this is absolutely something. The support structure is so good. And it's not just good at the beginning. We have an amazing 12-month program, but we also have what we call an enterprise business. It's not a training course, but almost like a support group. So we get the guys together who have got multiple territories, who have been with us for 5, 10, 15, 20. We've got people who've been with us for 30 years. And I know, it's insane. I must admit, coming into this franchise, I was so surprised to see that we had franchisees that had been 20, 25, 30 years plus within the network.
A typical franchise, so a typical franchise agreement is what, 5 years, and then they
5 years with a right to renew for another 5 years on similar.
So some of them are renewed five times. Yeah, I mean, and that again, that's testament, isn't it? You know, and if Harvey was here, he'd be saying exactly the same thing. The secret to good franchising is happy, successful franchisees. And I think a real indicator, a litmus test for that is the renewals, and the fact you've got people in the business that have renewed. And
it definitely does get harder when you've got 300 people to please, because 300 people all have 300 different opinions on how things should be. And as a franchisor, that is always a challenge that everyone expects.
It's diplomacy as well, isn't it? I think. You know, you can't afford to ignore the franchisees, because they're the people at the sharp end, if you like. They're the ones at the customer interface. I know as good franchisors, you listen to your franchisees, you get feedback, and you work with them in terms of new initiatives. I mean, look, I don't want to go back there too far, but I mean, COVID must have been a particularly difficult time with the pandemic and how the business was operating. I don't think you could have got through that without that close level of communication between.
It was amazing, and the level of support that came from the franchisees and the parents and the children, because everyone wanted it to continue, and so everyone had this one overarching vision of, we cannot abandon our students and leave them just out there on their own. So the switch from in-person classes to online classes was so fast, given the level of work that was doing. And members of the team were working 18, 20-hour days to make sure that the children didn't miss out, because they all have that passion of, we're going to make this work and we're going to do that together.
And I guess that's the essence of why we do this show as well, because we want people to tune into the vision, the values. Like I said, we put the brochure and the numbers to one side, and it's more about the people in the business and tuning into that and sharing that ethos. And we revisit this now, but I mean, the type of people. So typically, what type of people are drawn to want to run a Stagecoach franchise then?
So I think it is. We do have a very large amount of women.
Right.
So I think we have a lot more female franchisees than we do male franchisees. It's not to say we don't have male franchisees, but a lot of them are women who typically have got younger families, so they want to do something that works in and around looking after their children during the day and being able to be in control of the school pickup. Most of our Stagecoach classes run Saturdays and Sundays. We do run them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evenings. I think we do have some of our younger classes that run on Mondays and Tuesdays, because they tend to be shorter classes. But when it's a 3-hour class, you don't tend to get somebody coming to a 3-hour class maybe on a Tuesday quite so much as you would. There are still some out there who do, and they're very popular, but it tends to not be the standard model. And that works really well when you've got a family where one partner is working during the day and then somebody else can work at the weekends, and childcare. It works really beautifully alongside that. So we do see a lot of female franchisees. We do see a lot of people who start it maybe as a part-time business and very quickly transition from it being part-time into full-time. So it's almost like they can run it alongside, and then it's less of a leap. So you're not cutting off your income from your day job before it's established. It has become harder to do that because they do grow very quickly now. I think in the early days, 30 years ago, you could gently move them along, but they're so popular that they fill very quickly. And so we generally say to people, don't plan to be in a day job for longer than a year.
And that's a very nice lead on to this question, because again, like a lot of these types of franchises, they evolve, don't they? They evolve over time. And I imagine Stagecoach back in the day when it first started out. I mean, and I read a statistic. Just doing my research on the show, you'd be very, very proud of me.
Yes.
I read there have been about 600 franchisees go through the Stagecoach process, and many of those are still franchisees now.
Exactly. But there's been a lot. And what does tend to happen, actually, and this is the first franchise I've ever come across that this happens to, so I'd be intrigued to know if anyone else has the same experience. But we have franchisees who sell their territories. And 6 months later realize that they really shouldn't have done, and they buy another one.
Really? goodness me.
Because they've missed it so much, or they realised that perhaps the reasons that they thought they wanted to change weren't the reasons they really wanted to change. And so that's really lovely, because they come back going, I shouldn't have sold. Can I buy another one, please? What's available for me? Which is really lovely.
So it's your favourite car, isn't it? And then regretting it.
Yeah.
The
biggest evolution for us has been, certainly in the last 5 years, we've seen a shift in people buy multi-territories. So we have a much larger percentage of our franchisees now have multi-territories.
Yeah.
We have a lot more who are planning to buy another territory. We have, I would say, between 25 and 30 at a minimum resales a year. So we've always got people who are selling, and they are selling for a significant sum now. So in the early days, that was something where they passed between hands, and franchisees would buy a neighbouring territory, and it would be more than a greenfield cost, but not a lot more.
Yes.
We've got significant six-figure sums that they're selling for now, which is really unique within the children's sector. I think often people think that children's sector don't make a lot of money and they're just a hobby or they're just a sideline. And that just isn't my experience at all. There are a lot of very, very professional, very business-minded people now.
Yes.
And having to get serious investment money from the banks.
Yeah.
Great things from HSBC and NatWest. Thank you very much for the support that they do for our franchisees coming in.
They recognise a good business when they see it, don't they? So just wheeling it back a bit. So the franchisees, do any of them own their own premises, or is it all done within schools?
They all do within schools. A couple of them I think would like to. I think there's a sense of, especially the performing artsy ones of us, I'm one of these. I want to own a theatre at some point in my life.
Yeah.
And I think some of them do want that. They'd love the idea of having a theatre and having studios, but actually the model doesn't need that and isn't based on that. It is much better tailored when you go into schools, because you've also got a target market right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Church venues, community centres, things like that. That's where it works best.
And do you help them? I think if I'm a new franchisee coming in, obviously, and that's part of the support process they get when they first start, is it to identify suitable premises and locations?
And we are really strict on the venues that you can use. It's not just having an okay space. So the key thing for us is child safeguarding.
Yes.
It has to be. I know people will have seen in the news the things that have happened this year. Last year now, isn't it?
Yeah.
January. I'm in January. Okay.
Yeah.
That really do say that how important picking the right venue and the right procedures to protect our children is. And we have a 24/7 support helpline when it comes to safeguarding. But from that, our safeguarding officer has outlined key criteria, and we have to check every single venue to make sure that there aren't shared toilets with adults. There are separate rooms for the separate classes, that the front doors, once the children in, can be locked, but they're safe to get out if there's a fire, things that, and other things that you maybe wouldn't even think about, but that are absolutely important to make sure that the children's safety is absolutely paramount.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Lisa, thank you so much. I feel like we've covered so much ground already, which is brilliant, because look, I mean, I've known Stagecoach for, I've been in franchising for 27 years now, and it's always been always been present, but I never really dug deep enough, if you like. And I've known it from a parent's point of view. Let's have a look who's in the chat, shall we? Because I think we've got a few people buzzing around here. We've got the lovely Julie Waits, who says, "Good evening from the windy northeast of England."
I know, it's absolutely throwing it down with rain. It's like, I was really conscious that maybe everyone could hear the rain, but it's eased off a bit now, so we're all right.
Fantastic.
Oh, bless you.
You're very welcome. Lovely to see you, Julie. Oh, look, here's a superstar. Look, another superstar. We have the very lovely Harvey Tuck. You're supposed to be at a parents' evening, mate. He says, "Hello."
Oh, I think he's just gone. So his last message is he's nipped off. But if you're still there, Harvey, hi.
Oh, great to be able to listen to the beginning of the part of the show. So thank you for stepping in and wearing the metaphoric hat. The only hat I've got is my fishing hat, okay, and it's covered in.
You should have done that. That would be great.
Horrible things that I wouldn't want to wear. But that's fantastic. And Harvey's got a question, which we're going to put up in a sec as well. Here we go. What's Julie's asked a question here. Does the franchisee support structure change as their individual businesses grow and mature? That's a brilliant question, because franchisees, as we both know, will move along that sort of franchisee life cycle, won't there? And their life cycle and what they need in terms of support will differ. I mean, it's always going to be a constant, because that's what franchising is all about. But how would you address that one?
Yeah, it is a fantastic question. And I think it's one of the things that we are very conscious of now that we do have a lot more people who have multi-territories, bigger businesses, have been with us for that extended period of time. How do you keep that growth happening? How do you keep that passion and engagement happening? And we have tailored our support towards multi-business territories and multi-territories. We've increased the support in terms of business consultants. So we don't have regional managers. We don't have people who encourage people to sell more. We have people who go out and get to know our franchisees and go, what are your goals?
Brilliant.
What drives you? What's your vision? What are your long-term, big, hairy ass goals? And we tailor then that support to where they want to be, to their exit plan. I mean, we talk about exit plan when people buy a franchise. So it's part of their business plan. They have to tell us when they want to leave. I mean, they don't generally leave when they tell us they want to leave, but at least we're building towards what they want and the value that they want for their business. So it becomes more tailored as people stay with us longer and as people grow their businesses bigger. And we rely on them telling us what they need. But we have that open dialogue that says people don't just go off into the ether and we forget that they're there. There is that open communication. We've just had a franchisee hit 1,000 students in their one territory, which is just fantastic. And we still have regular meetings with her. She is amazing at what she does, but we're still talking about, okay, what's next? How can we help with the future? How can we help you develop and grow? And so our business consultants very much work alongside, so they don't have to go anywhere else to get a business coach or a life coach or a business consultant. They get that through us.
That's fantastic. So really, it's very up-to-date modern thinking, isn't it, about franchisee support? Because again, and I'm sure you resonate with this, when I first joined the industry, the support you got wasn't business support. It was about making sure you had the right bog roll and making sure you had the right, the plant pots or whatever. It was very much focused on compliance, wasn't it? Compliance.
And we definitely still do that in those early years. That's what it's about. Let's get you in the box that you need to be in, and then let's learn how to color it. Let's learn how to add all the extras in. And we very much spread our training out rather than it all happening at the front end, because let's be honest, you get overwhelmed as a new franchisee that's just come in. All the information that you have to take on board, especially when it's in the children's sector, and you've also got the health and safety and the child safeguarding and the insurances, and they're really, really important things. And sometimes how to manage a cash flow or a P&L might fall by the wayside slightly. And actually, I get that, and I think that's kind of right. But 6 months in, before we hit that first tax year or VAT threshold or first time in checking your cash flows, we then check back in and we make sure that support's there, and we continue that through beyond 10, 20 years.
Brilliant. I mean, and that's really the litmus test again. I'll use that phrase again, but it really is. If people are looking at choosing a franchise, it's one of the questions they should be asking. Tell me about the support that's in place for me as a franchisee. Because that is the most important thing. You take away the support element from franchising, and you might as well be starting business on your own. That is the whole reason you go into it, is because of that initial support and ongoing support. And listen, that's fantastic. Now, my friend Harvey has very kindly offered and asked me a really good question, or asked us a really good question here. And I think it's important now because look, our audience is fantastic, and we since we've been running the show, we have attracted a bigger audience of people that are actually looking at starting a franchise, which is fantastic, because it says so much about what everybody's doing in the industry to really raise that profile of franchising. And there's a general sort of entrepreneurial spirit and an enterprise spirit in this country. So I think that's fantastic. But I guess, and again, I will be asking the same question as well. Look, I'm interested. I've heard Lisa on franchising brand stories. I'm really interested in finding out a bit more about it. What can they expect? What would their journey look like in that sort of discovery process?
So just like for our for all of our franchisees training and support, It's very personalized. So we do an initial call. We have a team that handles that. Either Beth or Ashley would be there on the end of the phone. Okay, you're interested, pick up the phone, ping an email. You can even text us. We try to be as accessible as possible for the way that people want to communicate. And we will just have that initial call that says, okay, ask your questions. There's a little bit of screening that happens. We do still get people who maybe ring us who are based in a country that we don't have a master franchisee or any units, and we haven't gone into yet. So if we got somebody who called from Africa and they said, I'm looking for a job, we know that we can't do that. So we use that initial call to sort of weed out the people that we know that we can't help at this stage.
Yeah.
And then we get them to book into a discovery call, and that discovery call is 1-to-1. So you get to hear the answer to your questions. We go through a standard presentation so everyone gets the same information. But for some people, it's more important to know what business support they're going to get, because, hey, I've been a drama teacher for 25 years. I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Or I've worked in a school as a head teacher, so I've got that bit down, but actually I've never run a business, and that's what I need help with. And others may have been running a business or worked in a corporate background, and actually their bit is, I've never worked with children before. I know I'm really passionate about seeing them grow and develop, but I don't know how to do that. So we do tailor that prospect journey to what the prospect needs, while still hitting the targets that you do need to do. We go through that discovery day. We give them a chance to speak to other franchisees. They can speak to anybody they like. They can just, you can see who our franchisees are. You pick up, look online, you can see them. They can speak to anybody, but we will actually put them in touch with people. We let them go and do a school visit so they can see exactly what they're buying. What would their Saturday look like if they had a Saturday morning school and a Saturday afternoon school with 3 teachers in the morning and 3 teachers in the afternoon? What is that like? What's that going to be? And they shadow that principal. We also take them through a business plan. So we give them the very bare bones of, hey, if you're crafting a business plan for the first time, this is what it should contain.
Yeah. And
then we do invest quite a lot of time and energy with that person and taking them through it, because if you've never written a business plan before in your life, that's scary. And for some of the guys coming in, they're also doing that business plan so they can get financing. So it's really important that certain things are in there, and it's not just sort of a vision board of what you might like to achieve. You've got to have some actuals in there as well. We give them a template for how to do a cash flow analysis and a P&L going forward, and we take people and educate them in how to do that, but then let them go and do it themselves. And we would introduce them around that sort of stage to their business consultants, so they will meet in the recruitment process who is going to support them once they've joined, should they choose to do that.
I love that. So there's that continuity, isn't there?
It's really important that recruitment don't just go lob them over the fence into operations team, and the operations team take them, and nobody's spoken to the other side of the fence at any point. So
and people like that. They like that person they can relate to, and spotting the crowd, whoever it is, and they understand them, and they've been on that journey with them as well. I think it brings me to a really interesting question here, and I know we're not going to go over what we've talked about, but presumably during this prospecting process, it's a two-way process. They get to learn about you, but you equally get to learn about them as well. And I'm sure as a franchise brand that's well respected and ethical, you probably turn away quite a few people as well as people on. But are there certain sort of real skills and experience that you look for that are fundamentally important? I mean, you've talked about love of working with children, nurturing and development of children, but are there any sort of more other skills associated with the business that you look for example?
So I think the biggest thing for us is we teach everything in English. All our classes are taught in English. All our communications are in English. So if English it doesn't have to be your first language, but you do have to have a strong grasp of the English language, because it's really important that you can communicate with your parents, with the children, with your prospective staff members. So for us, there does have to be a level of competency within the English language. We do expect a level of numeracy skills. So it's really important that as running your business, you have to understand your numbers. Now, we can teach you the basics of the cash flow and the P&L and how to, and we put you in touch with people who can be your accountant and help you through that. But actually, there is a basic level of numeracy, because you've got to sign your accounts off at the end of the year. And you are accountable for what's in those. your accountant is not. So if something comes up, your accountant will go, well, gave them, they still had to be able to read what I gave them and understand it. So there are some key, very basic skills that need to be there. We also need people to be computer literate. We have a CRM system. Every child has to be on that online system to be insured and to be on our safeguarding list. So we know how many children we've got at any given time in any given class. So they do have to be computer literate. So there are some 3 key, very core baseline things. But also it is definitely the case of, I think the passion about children is the overriding factor. Because actually, if you don't have that, you're probably going to be miserable doing this job. Because there's, we all know running a business is really tough, whether you do it on your own or whether you do it as a franchise. It's less tough if you do it as a franchise. You're more likely to succeed, but it's still hard work. And no franchise model in the world is a turnkey solution or safe as houses. You have to put the effort in. You have to put the hard work in. And for me, a big red flag is someone coming through who thinks it's just going to be easy. Oh yeah, but I just give you the money and all the kids will just flood in, and this is a simple thing. I just follow the method and there it goes. It's all done. Yeah. Well, yes, you do. You follow the method, but you've got to put the legwork in, and it is hard work. Yeah, it's rewarding, but it's hard work.
And what is that in terms of time scale? I mean, how long does that process take? As long as it's needed, presumably.
It's as long as it's needed. Yeah. Generally, it's not longer than 6 months.
Yeah.
But we do have some who take that a little bit longer. Especially, we have started looking for prospects at careers fairs. So when we're speaking to people at careers fairs, it's not just about talking to people about Stagecoach as an opportunity. It's talking to people about, have you even thought about running your own business?
Yeah.
And if you thought about running your own business, do you know what a franchise is?
Yeah.
And then it's, okay, now you know what those 2 things are. Yeah. Now we'll introduce you to the brand. So those guys tend to be sort of 12 months to 18 months. So there is a longer lead time for those guys. And that's okay because you're taking them through more of a journey.
Of course. And people dip in and dip out of their interest in franchising according to their life, don't they? Their life cycle. Yeah. And,
I think my record for franchise, we met somebody at an expo. This is a very fresh franchise I ever worked for. And 7 years later,
wow,
they bought the franchise.
Would you believe it?
7 years. So that's my record so far.
Yeah. Goodness me. Okay, Lisa, thank you very much indeed for that. I think so. I mean, we've talked a lot about the type of people that you're looking for, and the personality traits and the attributes. But I guess the thing that I'm really want to find out about is, what does a day in the life of a franchisee look like?
Best day. Do you know what? It's really funny because a lot of people come in and expect that our franchisees, as principals of the school, are teaching.
Right.
So they're teaching drama, they're teaching singing, they're teaching dance. They don't teach at all. They manage the teachers.
Right.
So it is their job to be what we say is a supernumerary. So say, for example, so the dance, the drama and the singing run concurrently, and then they rotate. So you get 3 groups of children running simultaneously. Wow. And then they rotate and do, so they've all done all 3 classes by the end. And our principal is outside of that, and they facilitate the children moving from class to class.
Yeah.
Are that extra person in case something does happen to, children are accident prone. Sometimes something happens. And what we don't want is that principal then has to leave the room and leave those children on their own while they take somebody out who's maybe hurt themselves.
Yep.
So there has to be that person outside. Now, there are emergency situations when we know that the principal does sometimes have to step in and teach, but it's few and far between.
Okay.
And actually what they do is they manage the school. They act like a head teacher of a secondary school. They don't often teach. Right. They facilitate that happening. Okay. And so they can focus on the marketing of their business, establishing relationships with parents. They have to be there first. They open up. They have to be there last. They lock up. So they're the first person on site, they're the last person on site, and they float between the classes to make sure that everything's running smoothly, make sure that everyone's happy, make sure that, some of them will say one of their biggest duties is making sure that the snack table is fully stocked. Very important for retention of your teachers. Keep the snack table stocked. That's important for retention of any team. But yeah, so that's very much what they do. But they spend a lot of their time building relationships and networking with teachers outside of their own teachers, with parents, with groups where parents are going to be, advertising, marketing, social media, creating content for that social media. We get a lot of general content that comes from head office.
Yes.
It keeps your social media going, but the personalized stuff, that's where it's real gold. That's what the parents want to see.
Yeah, 100%. And if they do, I mean, if for a new principal, then if they need help in terms of recruiting teachers, I mean, that's part of what you do as a support team as well, I presume.
Yeah, it is. And we will, we'll help them through interviewing. We'll give them the key things to look for. We give them job roles, job descriptions, and say, well, this is the kind of thing that's worked in the past. These are the key attributes that you're looking for in people. Always have a couple of backups and spares, because invariably if someone goes sick, they let you know at about 9:05 when the class is going to start at past. So you have to have your backups. But yeah, we help with all of that. And if we need to, we step in and actually we'll do some interviews with people if they're really nervous. That's not a problem either.
That's brilliant. Really good support. And I think that, we talked earlier about how the franchise has evolved. I mean, that's a testament to that, isn't it? In the early days, I know they were very much owner operators, weren't they? Delivering the classes and doing everything else. And now it's really moved on. Would you call it a management franchise now?
I think so. I mean, especially with the guys who've got more than one territory, because then you can't be in both places at once. That's not something that we're capable of doing yet. I don't know. In the future, you might be able to clone yourself, but right now we have to go with the fact we can't be cloned, and therefore they have general managers. So they would have people who come on what we call principal absence training, that says when the principal can't be on site, this person, we have said at Stagecoach, we're happy for them to take the place of the principal and run the principal duties. But again, that general manager, principal absence trained person cannot be teaching at the same time. So there's always that person who's removed from the day-to-day teaching who can manage the overall business.
I think it runs like a well-oiled machine. It
really does. It does, and it all the teeny tiny cogs and the big fat cogs, it just doesn't run without all of them. So it doesn't matter how big or small you think you are in that machine, you're an essential part of that cog.
Correct. And it really does go back to the whole sort of recruitment process, doesn't it, in terms of finding the marriage between those people that you want.
And we do go with gut instinct. If you have a gut instinct that this just isn't going to work, I really encourage my team to listen to that.
Yes.
I don't encourage them to listen to the other way around. So, I really like that person, so of course they'll be great. It's not necessarily going to work like that, but I do encourage if that niggling doubt, I'm just not sure this is right for you. Or if they have that niggling doubt and we're having to work at it, I'm like, do you know what? You shouldn't have to work at it. It should be the right franchisee will just fit and it will just work.
Correct. And that's the mark of good ethical franchising, isn't it? As we both know. Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, listen, we're going to move on to the last section of chapter 2, and this is Harvey's favourite question, his favourite section of the show, and I have to agree with him because we've both been lucky enough to work in franchising for many years, and as you and I both know, it changes lives. It changes lives at every different level. It's a fantastic industry to be in, but I guess for me, Stagecoach impacts lives on so many different levels. You've obviously got, most importantly, the children. And what Stagecoach does for the children. You've got the parents of those children, and you've got the franchisees as well, because they're in a biz. They have the opportunity to run and do something they absolutely love doing, whilst maintaining their work-life balance and being parents as well. So I'll ask you, I mean, are there any real life-changing stories that you've come across that really stick out in your mind that you'd like to share with us?
Yes. So I think I can probably give you a story for each of those. For the children, for the parents, and for the franchisee. And the most recent one is for the children. So at Christmas, I get to see lots of shows. It makes me very happy. But this one particular teacher had shared with me prior that they had a young girl in their class that was nonverbal and had been for 6 years. So she's been with Stagecoach for 6 years, nonverbal. And they'd done an end-of-year show, and they always do their end-of-year shows at Christmas. Some of them do them in June, but this particular principal does hers at Christmas, and always a Christmas theme. And in the first year, the child didn't even leave her parents' side. They sat in the audience. They didn't want to get on the stage. And bit by bit over the last 6 years, that child's moved a little bit closer to the stage, was sat on the side of the stage. Last year, had stood on stage and done a little dance routine with the rest of her class. And then this year, they gave her a line, and she'd started to be more verbal in classes and say certain phrases or certain things, but still not Little Miss Chatterbox, still not sort of engaging generally in conversation. Engaging with the classes, yes, but not with conversation. And was obviously very, very happy there. And they had a line for her in this Christmas production. And they were like, she's not really said it in rehearsals or anything like that. Came to the show on stage, this little girl just stepped forward, said her line, clear as a bell. Most of the audience had seen that little girl's journey because they've been parents, had been there for a long time as well. I looked around, I don't think I saw a single dry eye in the audience, because what a monumental thing for that girl to feel so safe and so confident. And they just nurtured her there. And yeah, it took 6 years to get one line out on stage, but it was just the most beautiful thing to witness.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. And obviously it made a massive difference to her parents as well. They were the loudest people crying in the audience, but just such happy tears.
What impact? I mean, tremendous impact. To think that what you do is something you do for a living.
Yeah,
a living.
Like that's not just my business. That hasn't just made me money and paid for my bills and got me a nice few holidays. And don't get me wrong, it does that too. But that child's life has been changed.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just beautiful. And we have had parents come to, I get principals tell me all the time, when, especially for youngsters who are in their teenage years, parents will come in and say, you do not understand how true this is, but Stagecoach has literally saved my child's life. It is their one point in their week that is theirs, and that they feel safe and that they feel that they can be themselves. And it's what gets them through week on week. They're like, as long as I've got that light, as long as I've got Stagecoach on a Saturday or on a Sunday or on a Friday or whatever, I can get through the next week, because that's my point of that builds me up, and I can do another week because of what they're going through in their personal lives or their health or whatever that might be. But from a franchisee point of view, I think my favorite one, and I mean, there's loads of when they've made money and they've hit targets and goals and they've gone to the Maldives for the first time, things like that. But the one that I think hit home the most was, we had a lady who did a case study, and she stood up and she said, the biggest difference has been being able to tuck my children into bed and read them a bedtime story, because now I've got control of my own destiny. I've got control of my own time, and I'm not leaving before they get up in the morning and coming back after they've gone to bed. I've not got to go into the city and miss my children growing up.
Yeah.
Now I get to see what they're experiencing. And for me, that might not be the biggest, most amazing thing in the world, but the difference that made to that one person's life.
Fantastic.
And the difference that will make to her children's lives. To her. I was really fortunate. My mum was always there when I went to bed, and I'm so fortunate that I had that from my mum. And I know so many people don't have it.
Yeah. I absolutely resonate with that. I mean, I was a franchisee, as you know, and part of my routine as a franchisee was to take the kids in the morning in the car, and then to pick them up for afterwards. But it was my own business. It was my, I could do that. I could manage my work-life balance. Fantastic stories. Thank you so much indeed. I mean, that's brilliant. I'm just aware that we've taken so much of your time this evening, and it's an absolutely fascinating story. And I really hope that people, if they want to find out a little bit more about it, can reach out to you directly, for sure. And we have a little QR code up on the screen as well that we put in place, so that people can just scan that and they can actually get access to your website and reach out to you directly. But I want to finish off this session really, and I want to talk about, as a business, and you've talked about the levels of investment and everything else that's going on, and the focus from Trafalgar and really growing the business and supporting the ethos and values of franchising. Let's have an exclusive for franchising brand stories.
Okay, so I can do that for you. One of the big things that being part of Trafalgar has provided us the opportunity with is acquisitions. And one of the things that we want to do is reach as many children as possible, as many young people as possible, to give them some level of creative courage for life. So although that's the Stagecoach strapline, that actually is something that's so ingrained in all of us. And back in 2021, we acquired a business called Helen O'Grady Drama Academy. Yes. Last year, we rebranded that to Drama Kids. Really does what it says on the tin. It provides us another price point. So it's another franchise. It's still within the performing arts sector. It's still very much children's services, but it provides us another price point because Stagecoach is 3 hours, and 3 hours of training is not 50p. It does cost. And we know that there are children out there that can't afford it. And sometimes there are children out there who don't want to sing, or they don't want to dance, or they don't want to do 3 hours on a Saturday, and the parents don't want to give them up for 3 hours on a Saturday, and maybe only an hour is better. So acquiring Drama Kids really gave us the opportunity to tap into another demographic and reach people who perhaps Stagecoach wasn't for them. It's also given our franchisees an opportunity to buy another franchise. We have franchisees who own both brands, and they complement each other beautifully. But we are definitely on the hunt for more acquisitions in order to really build the brands that we have that reach children across the sector. So that is definitely part of our global expansion for Stagecoach, but also for the Trafalgar Education brand.
And then, you know, for those people that have got the aspirations to be multi-brand owners, it means they can stay within their value zone and stick to something they really enjoy doing as well. I mean, and
we have people who are experts for that particular franchise. We have an expert team for Drama Kids, we have an expert team for Stagecoach, but we also have a support team that supports both. So when you are a multi-brand, you do still have people who you can talk to about either one of any of your brands. So compliance, for example, and recruitment are run by the same team.
Superb. Absolutely tremendous. Listen, thank you very much for that. I feel like we've had an exclusive there. So if anybody wants to know more about Drama Kids as well, they can.
Absolutely. Well. And Drama Kids, we've got a lot more of the country that we have available. So Drama Kids was established in Australia 45 years ago. They have 60,000 students in India and Pakistan, for example. But over here, we still only have around 40 franchisees. So there's lots of territories available, and we're ready for a really strong UK expansion. We recruited 10 new franchises in the last 12 months.
Wow. So really an opportunity to get in at the start of something which is going to grow and flourish and become the next.
In the same way as Stagecoach,
Fantastic. Lisa, listen, thank you so much indeed for your time. I'm sorry I've taken all your time this evening.
Don't you worry at all. That's fine.
It's such a great story. And as I said, a brand that I've known for so many years, but not really found out more about it. So thank you for that. And I really appreciate it. And as I said, if people want to scan the QR code, they can get a replay for sure. Or if you want to reach out to Lisa directly, I'm sure they can do that via LinkedIn or
via LinkedIn, or you can come straight to my email. That's fine. It's elsted@trafalgar.global.
Brilliant. That's nice.
I'm happy for anyone to do that.
Superb. Well, listen, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us live. And if you're watching this in the future, it's been a fantastic show. And I just want to thank my guest, Lisa Stead from Trafalgar, Stagecoach and Drama Kids, of course, for coming on and sharing the inspiring franchising brand story. Next week, we are in the company of Pittman Training. We don't have Isaac Pittman himself, sadly, but we have Paul Lewis, who's the MD of Pittman Training. And on Tuesday next week, Harvey has a show called Franchise Mentorship. Very much in line with the mentoring and supporting and nurturing and developing that we talked earlier. But anyway, listen, if you have joined us live, thank you so much. Lisa, thank you once again. And have a lovely evening, everybody, and take care. See you again soon. All the best.